Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Connections, Coffee, and Confidence with me, Janice. Hey, let me ask you this. As we head into Q4, how are your goals doing? Now, did that question make you snort at the ridiculousness of it because your goals are awesome? Thank you very much. I mean, you are busy working every day. Or did you feel a moment of embarrassment or guilt because, well, goals just aren't something that you focus on very often? You haven't looked at them since maybe February? Or they aren't written down? Or any other manner of things that business owners are supposed to do with their business plan? Oh gosh, a business plan. Or maybe you don't really believe in goals. It all just happens kind of organically for you, and that feels good for you and your business. After all, you've been just fine up until now anyway, right? And if that's not quite the case, it's October. Does it really matter? Isn't it too late to pick a target and start running? Hi, I'm Janice Fogarty, and I'm a communications strategist and consultant. The Connections, Coffee, Confidence podcast is for professional women entrepreneurs who have established themselves and their business, and they're ready to get serious about using the power of communication to surpass their business goals. On this podcast, I discuss everything from leadership to establishing a business vision to the intricacies of creating messaging, publicity, and more. I speak to women who excel in communications in their business, whatever they do, and get an inside look at how they created a thriving livelihood. So top up your mug and welcome to this week's episode. Something that's been quite eye-opening to me is the number of people who do not have goals for their business beyond pay the bills, or make lots of money, or take a vacation. While they're all very good things to want to do, they're not what anyone would term business goals. Goals can be scary because it means you're setting an intention, and what if you don't meet it? What if you fail? What if you are wildly successful? Sometimes that's actually more scary. So if you don't set real goals, or if you don't tell anyone about them, maybe if you just keep them tucked in your head, you can be just as successful as anyone else, right? Well, my two questions around that are, how do you know when you've been successful if you haven't defined that through your goals? And also, what's the worst thing about failure? What does that even mean? Because if you haven't defined what success looks like, how do you know what failure is? Maybe you're super smart and you figure that if you don't define success and therefore have no standard for failure, you can never fail, and so you must win, right? No, that's not how it works. Every successful person has talked about their goals at some point or another. I mean, check out the biographies or the interviews with whomever you admire. Many of them reference goal setting as a key to their success. And not just business people like Sarah Blakely or Arianna Huffington, but athletes and other high-performing people. Many business coaches talk about running strategic planning sessions, complete with goal creation, as the key to getting things done. There's a body of research starting back in the 1960s about people and organizations who have smart and principled goals who are more likely to meet those goals than people who have goal ideas just tucked in their head or no goal at all. Now hold on. I know you've heard about SMART goals. Those are the goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timed. To make a lot of money and turn it into a SMART goal, you would need to define what a lot of money is. Put a number on it so that you can measure it. Make sure that you aren't deluding yourself about becoming the next Sarah Blakely in the next 5 months. Unless you have significant reason to believe that, then it's not delusion, but attainable and reasonable, and indeed a SMART goal. And congratulations. Your time frame for reaching your goals should be something concrete, an actual date on the calendar that you schedule so you can go ahead and review it, not just let it slip by you. At least when it pops up on your Google Calendar, you have an awareness of it before you just hit the little X and shut it down. But I mentioned goal-setting principles. Have you heard about this slightly different way of looking at goal setting called the theory of goal setting and task performance? Side note, when naming your service or product, how awesome is it to have a title that just tells the customer what they're getting? This theory was created by Dr. Edwin Locke and Dr. Gary Latham, and I'll link to their work in the show notes. They look at a slightly different way of creating our goals, a set of parameters to keep in mind while we develop our SMART goals. The principles are clarity, or being clear on what you are deciding to achieve or do. This is where specificity comes in. Challenge, or making sure it's a goal that's tough enough to motivate you, to inspire you to work towards it. Who wants to work with boring? But you don't want to challenge yourself to breaking. You still need that goal to be achievable. Commitment. And this one's interesting to me because this is where the science aligns with the woo, with manifesting. How do you get yourself to commit to your goals? This step can be achieved by journaling, making a vision board, writing out your ideal day or workplace or whatever the bigger picture you're working towards is, so that you're reminded of that personal attachment to the goal, why you're working towards it. This can also be impacted by having a vision statement or a mission for your work. The next principle is feedback, which for entrepreneurs kind of seems like a tough one. Some of us seem to bump up against only people who have no interest in positive feedback, and to take on board only negative, not constructive feedback, that's not what we want. But there does seem to be space in this principle to listen to yourself and see if you are feeling good about what you're doing and how you're doing it. But you could also get in contact with a mentor or a business partner, someone who has an idea about business and whose feedback will be relevant and productive. Not a slap on the back by your bestie or a lick of your face by your dog. Unless you make dog treats, then that's appropriate. And finally, the principle of complexity, which I think is really critical. When I learned about this principle, it made me think about overwhelm and burnout, especially with us, at the time of recording, heading into what is often the busiest quarter. This principle is about making sure we take the complexity, the steps or the people or the processes required to achieve the goal, and the time frame that we assign to it into account when we set that goal. If you are an overachiever, welcome. I'm reforming. It takes work, but I feel you and I am talking to you. Because when we sit down and think about the amazing things that we want to achieve, we also need to consider the stress we create by not acknowledging the different factors that can impact that goal's achievement. So this is where being realistic comes into play. So you can see the theory principles and the SMART goal setting criteria are interlocked. Used together, they're a rounded way of creating goals that you feel good working towards. And this is the point of both the doctor's work, and I want you to keep them in mind as we talk about your goals. Now, in theory, at the beginning of the year, you set your goals, and here we are in the fourth quarter, looking at what we wanted to accomplish, what we have accomplished, and for whatever reasons, what we let slide. It's really important to take time to focus on what went well, what you have accomplished, and how, because what you've achieved once, you can do it again. If those goals are successful, they're likely ones that you want to repeat, and when it comes time to creating your goals for 2022, you should keep them in mind. And speaking of, I'm hosting a free goal-setting co-working session where we can get together virtually for 90 minutes and work together on reviewing 2021 and setting our goals for 2022. I'll be there as a facilitator to answer questions, I'll probably ask some, and I'll provide some guidance. But if you're one of those people who needs accountability, someone to see you show up and do the work, well, this is your chance to have it. I'm hosting this online as a group on November 10th, 2021, and the sign-up details are in the show notes. So back to this year's goals. what have you not accomplished? Why? I suspect it's either the complexity of the goal or maybe visits from imposter syndrome gremlins, but maybe both are to blame. And when you look at what you want to accomplish this quarter, what are your honest thoughts of those goals? Keeping the 5 principles of goal setting in mind, as well as the SMART criteria. Are these goals reasonable and challenging? Do you have time to complete them, or do you need to revise the review date? Are you clear on what you actually intend to accomplish? Do you still want to even work towards these particular goals? Because it's your business. You can change your goals based on what's happening in your world. Don't throw things out just because they're too hard or scary or bold. If they're good for your growth and your bottom line, consider your reasons why you want to delete them from your plan. If they don't align with who you are, they make you work with people you don't value or trust, or you just really hate the work entailed, like not the behind the scenes or admin work, you can get someone to do that, or like the work around it. If the actual meat of the work destroys your soul, yeah, then maybe you have cause for re-examining that goal being part of your plan. And do your goals inspire and challenge you? Are you looking forward to working on them? If not, you have some work to do. None of us are in business because it's fun. Okay, hopefully it is fun, but also like you're making a difference. You're making money. You're fulfilling some sort of purpose. Goal setting is something that will help you do just that. When your goals are SMART, when they meet the 5 principles of goal setting, when they are relevant and challenging and interesting to you, that's when you'll be hopping to hit your review date. You'll be keen to hit the end of each quarter and look back at what you've done, and eager to look ahead at what's next. And no matter what your timekeeping is like in the rest of your life, when it comes to your business, you'll know exactly where you are, which will be where you're supposed to be. Thanks for joining me today, and don't forget about checking out the goal setting co-working session on November 10th, 2021. If this is of interest to you, head to the show notes or go to janicefogarty.com for more information and, of course, to sign up. Until next week, my friends, have a fan-freaking-tastic day. Thanks so much for listening this week. I invite you to sign up for my email list or join me in the Connections Coffee and Confidence community on Facebook. Those are the people who get first dibs on any classes or products I create, and they benefit from the extras I can't get into in a podcast format. I also lovingly request that if you've enjoyed this podcast, you leave a review on Apple. When I see a new review, I get so excited I almost spill my cappuccino froth. Almost. And if you're a woman entrepreneur who's ready to get serious about using the power of communications to grow your business, send me an email at janice@janicefogarty.com. All my details are in the show notes. Thank you again for listening today, and I'll chat with you again next week.